Social Security. So remember, we're in this second 100 days, okay? We're moving into 1935, 36. Roosevelt takes office in 33. So the bulk of that New Deal stuff did come in the first 100 days of 1933, okay? So here are a few more things that Roosevelt's doing. He's trying to reform the system rather than recover it. That's kind of the theme of the second 100 days. Now, I'm not sure why my slides, I've tried to reset this and I don't know what's going on. So technology is not working this morning very well. But anyhow, guys, we need more money to do these things. So he's going to move against the wealthy and the powerful. Now, you guys remember studying the antitrust stuff of the monopolies at the end of your last year, breaking up the monopolies. This is kind of a similar thing where you have large gas and electric companies. They're going to break up these large conglomerates. Now, there was still only one phone company at the time and in the 1930s. And what was the name of that phone company? Who invented the phone? Graham Bell. So it was the name of the company. Bell Telephone Company. Okay. Now, Mr. Lemonnier and I can remember when the government broke up Bell. I think it was in the 70s. And so we got.
We're talking real phones.
Yeah, landline.
Yeah, not cell phones.
Yeah. So we got, I don't know, some of the names. Well, you had Bell South. And I think Western Bell, something like that. They broke them up like that, and then we started getting other phone companies create competition in the system. Okay. Fact of the matter is, guys, landlines are pretty darn cheap. Okay. And if you couldn't get a landline, you couldn't afford one, the government ended up paying for it because it became kind of like an emergency situation. So you had like an elderly person that lived alone. It's kind of a safety thing so that they can call 911. Okay, so that's still the case today. The government has a program to help people that can't afford a landline. Okay. All right. Now, is this where we get into the weeds a little bit about something that I gave you a homework question on? And this is the Interstate Commerce Clause. Guys, the Interstate Commerce Clause has always been in the Constitution, okay? And basically, up to this point, it's never been used by the national government. So in the homework question I asked you was about this clause and how it was used. So this clause gives the federal government power to regulate companies that were interstate, where if, let's say you're building a house in Kansas, okay? You're a builder. The wood to build the frame of the house, do you get that wood from Kansas? Of course not. Kansas has no trees, right? And the ones we have, we don't want to cut down to use to frame houses, do we? You know where a lot of that lumber comes from to frame houses? Where we get that lumber? Huh? Canada. Canada has large forests, okay? So we ship that from Canada down to Kansas, probably by rail. That's interstate. The nuts, the bolts, the nails to build a house, are those all made in Kansas? Probably not. Now, the concrete for the foundation, and Dale Ready Mix, right? You got all the stuff you need to make concrete right here in Kansas, okay? But the other stuff comes across state lines. So guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The federal government can now regulate home builders because the pieces that they're using come across state lines. Now, anybody in Trade Academy, done in Trade Academy? Okay, so you're familiar with this organization called OSHA? Do you know what that stands for? I know what it. I don't know what it is, but I got the card. It's the Occupational Safety Hazard Administration. Yeah. Okay. Now, what does OSHA do, Jackson? So you don't get yourself hurt in a construction place, yes? But as somebody that works at my desk a lot, which I really don't, do I? But if I did work at my desk a lot, and I typed and typed and typed for hours and hours and hours, or spent hours and hours and hours grading essays, I might get carpal tunnel. Yes? Which is a hazard. Okay? Which has happened to me. Okay? Now, right, what do I do? Do I sue the school on that or what? Do I call OSHA? I'm not sure what I do on that. Okay? Never really thought of doing that. But, so there's regulations. So and I read your answers on this, guys. Some of your answers talked about new regulatory agencies. Okay? Does pollution cross state lines? Does air pollution cross state lines? Yes, it does. That means if you emit something to the air, the water can be regulated by the federal government. Okay, so here's what I'm saying. This has always been in the Constitution. Roosevelt uses it. So the administrative state, the regulatory state of the United States begins to grow. Okay? You've heard of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Aviation, the Federal Trade Commission. These are all established under this clause, the power granted to the national government to regulate your lives and your businesses. The federal government becomes much stronger than ever before. Follow me. Okay? Not saying that they're not allowed to. I'm just saying that up to this point, it's never really been used like that. Okay? And there are mountains and mountains and mountains of regulations on all kinds of industries because of this. Okay? Are regulations sometimes expensive to deal with? Does it make business more expensive to do? Absolutely. So the more regulations you have, maybe the less efficient you are. So this is a balance, guys. This is what we talk about. We talk about politics. It's about a balance of regulations. What's necessary and what's kind of unnecessary. Okay? Now, if you're getting on a roof and you're working on a roof, you are supposed to have what? A harness. You ever go to a job site and somebody's on a roof without a harness, they're breaking the rules. You understand? Okay? Yes? Okay. All right. So the Interstate Commerce Clause. I just wanted to really kind of drive that home because that gives the national government a lot more power than it's ever had. All right. Now, one of the things on the previous slide we talked about was helping labor unions. This is something that Roosevelt wanted to do. Okay, labor unions. So they're going to create the National Labor Relations Act, which is going to create the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB. This is still around today. Okay. Now, we've talked about unions a little bit in here. Unions are generally collective bargaining, which means the workers join together to team up against management and ownership, better pay, better benefits, and so forth. Yes? Everybody understands that? This group definitely acts as an intermediary between unions and ownership. Okay? Now, what this does is it guarantees the rights of workers to join unions in this country. Okay? And it can stop unfair practices against unions by businesses. Now, let me bring up something you guys are all familiar with, and that is Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon? Is everybody in here an Amazon Prime member? Yes. How many of you guys have ever ordered anything off Amazon? Oh my gosh. Bezos is getting it done. Okay? And his ex-wife. We got half. Now, have you heard about working conditions in the Amazon warehouses? Like, guys, is it amazing how fast stuff turns up at your doorstep? You know what I mean? So the workers that work in the warehouses of Amazon, I've heard a lot of bad things about them. Like, they have quotas, like if they're too slow, they get punished, stuff like that. Like, it's almost like a hostile work environment. Okay. Now, there have been attempts by Amazon warehouse workers to unionize. Okay, when you form a union, you have more power. Yes, as a worker. Does Jeff Bezos want his warehouse workers to unionize? No, he doesn't. Does Walmart want their employees to organize to a union? No. Okay. Now, what did Walmart do to try and prevent that? They raised their wages. Okay. You can actually make pretty good money working at Walmart now. Did you know that? Yeah. Anybody work there? Know anybody that works there? Okay. I know my son has a friend that's been with Walmart now for about 8 years. Like, he started in high school, and he's moved into management. You know, he's not running the place yet, but he's making good money. He's making a living. Okay, and he's finishing his 4-year degree in business finance, and hopefully continue to move up and make a good living at Walmart. Okay, so there's things that businesses can do to try and prevent you from unionizing. Like, hey, if you don't unionize, we'll do this for you. Okay, but what you can't do is punish them for trying to form a union. This is unfair business, unfair practices against unions. Yes.
Don't they usually sometimes make it so that they will hire you?
Or they'll try to find a reason to fire you before you can form that union. Okay? Like, you did something wrong at work, we're going to have to let you go. You know what I mean? Now, would you be able to go to the NLRB with that and say, hey, this is unfair, the way they treated me. They fired me for no reason because I was trying to form a union. Yeah, you might have a case. You're going to have to try and prove it, right? But that's what this board is for. Okay? Now, like I said, it's still around. Now, you know how many people are on the NLRB board? 3. Okay, and they're appointed by presidents. Okay, so if one retires, the president gets to appoint a new one. It's kind of like the federal courts. Okay, now everybody in here is familiar with Boeing, right? You know, Boeing used to have stuff here in Wichita. Okay, where is Boeing headquartered? Seattle. Okay, Seattle. Now, did we do this where I talked about right to work states and union shops? We haven't gotten there yet. Okay. Let me pull this up real quick. We do this after World War II, but let's see. Can I get a map? Okay. You going? You're not gonna let me do that? I'm just gonna have to get the whole slide here. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that? The blue states over here? Can you see that? These are called right to work states. The orange colored are what are called union shops. So Seattle is in Washington, correct? Seattle, Washington is a union shop. Now, have you ever heard of a union called the Sheet Metal Workers Union or the Machinists Union? I don't know if you've ever heard these terms, okay? If there is a union in Seattle for sheet metal workers that work on building planes and Boeing, you have to join. You don't have a choice. Follow me. So you have to pay union dues, no choice, in all of these orange states. Okay? Now there used to be more orange states. Michigan, where Detroit, where they built all the cars, used to be a union shop. It is now a right to work state. So in the state of Kansas, if you work for Spirit and you are a sheet metal worker and there is a union, you do not have to join. Are you encouraged to join? Yes, but you don't have to. You guys follow? See the difference? Okay. Now, Boeing, headquartered Seattle Union Shop, wanted to build a new plant in South Carolina. Now, this would create thousands of jobs for South Carolinians, but the union in Seattle sued to the NLRB saying that Boeing was building a plant in South Carolina to punish the unions in Washington State. Because if you don't have a union, can you pay the workers less generally? Yes. And that's the reason why Boeing wanted to build a plant in South Carolina. Now, where's the cost of living more? In Seattle or Greensville, South Carolina? Seattle, the cost of living is extremely high. Any guys ever been to Seattle? It's expensive. Yes? It's a cool city. My son spent the summer up there a couple of years ago, and I visited him up there. It's cool, man. And then, there's National Park, Olympia National Park. It's really cool. The baseball and football stadiums are right downtown on the water. It's a cool place. Expensive. Okay? To live there, it's expensive. It's not expensive to live in South Carolina. So the NLRB guys agreed with the union that they were punishing the union, and they said, Boeing, you can't build that plant in South Carolina. Now, there's 3 people on the board. 2 of them said, you're punishing the union, you can't do it. One of them said, what? Boeing should be able to build a plant wherever it wants. And so the one resigned in protest. Took about 5 years. And eventually Boeing was allowed to build a plant in South Carolina. Okay? Well, guys, this is the thing. I'm not trying to be anti-union here, but I am trying to be anti or pro-common sense. Michigan, where you had General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler that built millions and millions of cars over the decades. They were all unionized. The average worker on the line in 1992 was making $48 an hour. Toyota was making their cars in Japan, weren't paying their people that much, which meant that Toyota could sail their cars across the oceans, bring them to America, and sell them cheaper than our cars, and our auto manufacturers were paying $48 an hour. Does that require a college degree? No. Sometimes the unions do too good of a job. And the companies can't make a profit. You follow me? So you go to South Carolina, instead of paying somebody $45 an hour, you pay them $22 an hour, and the cost of living is lower, and they can make a good living, even buy a house, even buy a jet ski if they want. So what did Boeing do here? What Boeing did here in Wichita is they spun off this company called Spirit, and they renegotiated the contract with the unions to pay the workers less in Wichita, Kansas. Now, they're not getting penance, guys. They're still making good money. They're just not making as much money as they were. Follow me? I don't know if any of you guys have family in aircraft, okay? But a lot of people in the city do, okay? And we want to keep them here. We don't want Spirit to go away. We don't want Cessna to go away. Those are good paying jobs. You're not probably making $48 an hour. But if you're making 30, you're doing pretty dang good. Making more than I am. Okay? So, and guys, Boeing has to compete against Airbus. Where's Airbus from? France. Okay, so if you work at Boeing or Spirit, they try and help you pay for your health care. It's part of the job you get. You get health care, right? Well, in France, guys, they have national health care. So Airbus doesn't have to pay that for their employees, which means they can build planes for less. Follow me? All right. I know we're kind of getting into the weeds on this stuff. It's, I don't know, is that too much detail? I'm not anti-union, guys. I'm pro-common sense, okay? Now, here's what really went wrong for these auto workers is the North American Free Trade Agreement that Bill Clinton signed into law, passed by Republicans and Democrats. They both passed it. And they said, hey, Ford, General Motors, if you want, you can build a plant down here in Mexico, okay? And you can pay those people $15 an hour instead of $48 an hour. And you can compete with Kia and Hyundai, Toyota. Now, fact of the matter is, guys, you know where most of the cars, or I should say a lot of the cars in this country are now assembled. Alabama, Tennessee. Okay? Cost of living, cheap. Huntsville, Alabama. Okay? It's in northern Alabama. Okay? They're assembling Mercedes-Benz cars, foreign car makers in Alabama. So they bring all the parts in and have American workers assemble them. Okay? It's pretty cool. That's a good thing. Like, those are good jobs. We want that, don't we? Doesn't require a college degree. People can make a good living, buy a house, get a jet ski. Life is good. Yes, you work 5 days a week. Yes, it's monotonous. But you can have a family and raise it, enjoy life. Okay? If you don't want to do that job, go get a college degree, go do something else. Start your own business. Whatever you want to do. But it's nice to have jobs that people that for unskilled labor, that we can teach them labor skills and have them do it, and they can live and live happily. Amen? Can I get an amen on that? Let's go. Let's build some stuff in this country. Let's not send it all to other countries. How do we do that? That's for another day. All right. We got to keep moving. All right. So labor unions love the NLRB. Okay. They said it's their Magna Carta, their great charter. All right. Labor unions were not happening with the National Recovery Administration, the NRA, which was found unconstitutional. There was a provision in there. They didn't think it was strong enough. This is strong enough. This is still around today. Now, a little political cartoon is kind of silly, but let me throw it at you, okay? This guy says, if you want to make more money, you should upgrade your skills. All right, go back to college, take some classes, right? He says, well, I'm already taking a computer class. And this guy says, but I could add another class. He says, well, here's one that'll help. Introduction to union organizing. You want to make more money. Now, I didn't say anything in front of Mr. Lamont in here about, the Catholic Teachers Catholic Teachers Union, right? We talked about that before. Now, he might agree with me on that. But he's the boss, so I ain't going. But I could. But I'm not. Yeah, that's pretty boring stuff, so I just thought I'd lighten it up a little bit, okay? Actually, I think I made it kind of interesting. I don't know. It is dry stuff. I get it. Okay. The switch in time saves 9, right? Talked about it yesterday. Trouble with the Supreme Court. Roosevelt's stuff is getting stricken down left and right. Okay? The AAA, manufacturing processing tax, veto, gone. The NRA, gone. Roosevelt's pissed, talks about packing the cord, doesn't do it, but he does get his minimum wage. Which is on the graph right here, minimum wage, 1938. 25 cents an hour. Now $7.35. Now, I bet somebody could look it up. What 25 cents an hour in 1938 would be today. I bet it's more than $7.25. Is it $7.20 or $7.45? $7.25?
Are you willing to bet on that?
Huh?
Are you willing to bet on that?
I'm really not a betting man.
Dang it.
Gentlewomen's bet? Bragging rights? You think I'm wrong?
Never mind.
Okay.
What does it make money?
Well, there's a lot of people in here that gamble, so at least in the school. I don't know about this room, but I hear all about it in 4th hour. Troy Lowe. Michael Frank. They have a problem.
But we were both mad about the Mardi Gras.
What? The Mardi Gras?
If we were both mad about the one every other year.
Yeah. Okay, so remember, we're paying farmers not to plant. Yes? Having them kill off the surplus. So to get around this, we're going to restrict production of crops and so forth in the name of conservation, conserving the soil. Okay? So we're going to pay farmers to plant certain types of crops, crops that help the soil. Now, guys, if you grow wheat over and over and over again on the same soil, it is going to deplete that soil of key nutrients and minerals. Yes? However, there are some crops that you can plant that will replenish those nutrients and minerals. Yes? Can you name one? What? Barley? It's a big one that we grow around here. Soybeans. Okay? Soybeans are good for the soil. Now, we want to make something good for the soil, that's great, but then we're going to have to figure out what to use soybeans for. Like, do you just eat those? Anybody go to the store and buy soybeans for dinner tonight? There's all kinds of uses for them, yes? Like soybean oil. Now, have anybody in this room ever gone to the lunchroom here in the cafeteria and gotten a cheeseburger or a hamburger? You ever done that? Never had a hamburger from here? Well, then raise your hand. How many guys have ever had a hamburger from our cafeteria? Hey, Brandon? Okay, thank you.
How'd you know?
Emma, have you looked at the meat? Is it meat? Listen, I've been cooking hamburgers for a long time. I go to the store, I buy hamburger. That's how my mama did it. Make a bowl, do this, throw it in your hand like that, get it real tight, and then grill it. It looks nothing like what's in the cafeteria. There's got to be something else in there. Yeah. I do not. Because I got the system. Pop, 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 pop. Does anybody else use that yet? Now you Worcestershire.
That thing.
Yes. Lowry's seasoned salt. Pepper. Honey. You guys got one of those Blackstones at home? They do good. You cover them up. Good burger. Traeger burgers I like too because it keeps the juices staying there. Like, do you guys have a pellet grill like a Traeger? Yeah. I have both. I got rid of the gas grill. You know, the gas grill. I like using that, but they wear out like after 3 or 4 years. I'm like, I'll try the flat top, which is nice. I like doing chicken on that, cutting it up, doing like some Asian chicken on the skillet. It's good. Good weather's coming. Be outside cooking. Cowboy cooking. All right. You know what else? Peanuts are good. Peanuts are good for the soil. Anything that's grown in the soil is good. Okay? Helps replenish those nutrients. All right? You guys have gardens at home? Got a garden? Yeah. I built a nice raised garden in my house. I'm not a very good gardener. I've grown corn, potatoes, different spices or what do you call them? Herbs, yeah. Tomatoes, of course, right? Corn's kind of cool to grow. You don't get much out of it. You get like 2 ears per stalk. And it's like, really? That's all I get? I did like 8. And I'm like, well, that's going to feed us for 2 meals. Potatoes, though, they're easy to grow. Stick them in the ground. Okay. They're going to limit the powers of the SEC. They struck down the minimum wage, okay? Then that's switching time, saves 9 is going to happen, okay? One way to get around this is the Government Contracts Act. Who builds Air Force One? Boeing. So if Boeing wants to contract to build the president's plane, contract with the federal government to build the president's plane, Boeing, you want this contract, you're going to pay your employees a certain amount. So any companies that have government contracts, federal government can tell them how much to pay their employees. That was a way to get around minimum wage being unconstitutional, okay? So the Secretary of Labor, what's her name? Secretary of Labor? Frances Perkins can set minimum wage max hours for government contracted work. This will improve working conditions. Okay, now, over here is a political cartoon. Hear he, hear he. This is like a oxen and a cart. So it's like horse and buggy type thing. And it says Supreme Court. And then you got Roosevelt over here, like raising a fist to the Supreme Court. And you've got all these laws that need to be passed that are being held up by the Supreme Court. Okay? This is his fight with the Supreme Court. All right, now listen, I got one lecture left. And I'm gonna save that for tomorrow. Monday, guys, is gonna be a review day. And Mr. Ebright, I believe I'm taking the day off. Personal day to grade. I'm snowed under. I gotta get some stuff graded before I give more tests. So, sucks taking a personal day just to work, but that's what I gotta do. Okay? My life just got really busy. It's baseball season. Okay. All right, so we'll stop there.